In this video, I show how to add iOverlay to iRacing in VR while using the Quest 3, and all from an older gamer's perspective. The stock iRacing overlays, or black boxes as they are sometimes referred to as, while not terrible, are not great either. They also have the issue that all the cool ones are bundled together into one type of overlay, and if you want to display anything of meaning, you need to flick through the different screens using a hotkey on your wheel. They are also not entirely aesthetically pleasing, at least not right now. In a recent developer blog, iRacing has said their overlays will be updated sometime early in 2025. To be honest, I'm not wildly in love with the look at these at the moment and hope there will be some customization in colors and font or something. But with all that said, right now in 2024, if you want better overlays, you need to use something from a third-party company, such as iOverlay. That being said, if you are using the Quest 2 or 3 or even the Pro, the process of displaying overlays inside VR is not entirely straightforward. However, this video will show you what you need to install and how to get it working, and how to set up the overlays in VR in iRacing. There are timestamps for this video, so please feel free to skip ahead to the section you need the most.
Skip down here and blah, blah, blah.
What do you need? I am going to assume that you have already connected your Quest 3 headset to the PC, either by cable or Wi-Fi. If you haven't done this and you don't really know how to, I have this video, which I will link below, that shows you pretty much all you need to know to get a PC VR connection up and running. I am also going to assume that you have iRacing set up to work comfortably on your PC in VR. If you need help with that, I have multiple videos on the subject, but it's probably best to start here and then move on to some of the others. Again, I will put a link in the description to a few of these videos, but please look on my channel for others. You will also need to know how to use OpenXR to access iRacing, as getting overlays to work using the method I'm going to detail in this video requires OpenXR. Using the Oculus option will not work, so be warned. OpenXR only for third-party overlays. And of course, OpenXR works a lot better if you have access to the OpenXR toolkit. The installation and setup I have covered in this video, which I will also link below. So, assuming you are all set up to go and you are happy using OpenXR with iRacing and you are happy with the performance of your VR headset in iRacing, let's add some overlays. To do this, you will need two additional apps, OpenKneeBoard and iOverlay. There are other overlay options out there, but I'm going to stick with this one for this video, but most will also work with the rest of this tutorial. If they don't, let me know in the comments and I'll make another video about it. OpenKneeBoard is needed so that the third-party overlays can be seen in VR using the Quest. If you have a different headset to the Meta brand, you might not need this at all, so check online first before continuing with this video. Assuming you do have a Meta headset, download OpenKneeBoard from the GitHub link found in the description of this video. You will want the latest release, not the one at the top here, as that's for developers only. So click on this link here and it will take you to the latest stable version. Once there, click on the MSI link here and allow the file to download. Now you need the iOverlay app. Again, the link is below. Go to that website and download iOverlay to your computer. With all that done, move on to the next section of this video.
Getting excited.
Installing and setting up iOverlay. It's best to set up iOverlay first so that OpenKneeBoard has something to interact with. To do this, install the iOverlay app you downloaded in the previous section of this video. During this process, allow iOverlay access through your firewall if prompted and accept the terms and conditions. To start with, the free version of iOverlay is a little bit limited, but does still provide a number of useful overlays. On the left here, anything without a Pro marker is free for you to use, so don't feel under pressure just yet to get a subscription. There is a second section of overlays specifically for streaming below this, but in this video I will only be talking about the standard overlays, not the streaming ones. Setting up and fine-tuning most of iOverlay happens later in the process, font size and so on. But first, before you do anything else, make sure Show Overlays in Taskbar is toggled on. Otherwise, nothing will work. You might also want to select iOverlay to start minimized. Not sure what hardware acceleration is, but as I have a 4070 Super, I turn this on under the assumption that it might help. Don't alter the VR compatibility drop-down menu here. We will do that in OpenKneeBoard. This option doesn't tend to work very well with Meta headsets. I mean, you can try it if you want, but I've only found that I can get one overlay using this function. Lastly, click on the free overlays that you want to use and make sure visible is toggled on for all of them. Only the standings and relative overlays are toggled visible by default. Once all of that is done, shut down iOverlay and relaunch it to activate these changes. You should see all the overlays you have selected as visible appear as tabs on the Windows taskbar. You are now ready to install and set up OpenKneeBoard. So move on to the next section of this video if everything above is working as I have described it.
Tense, oh, I'm way past tense.
Installing and configuring OpenKneeBoard. Okay, with iOverlay set up and running on your computer, it's time to install and configure OpenKneeBoard. No idea why it's called that. If you do, please comment below. Use the MSI download to install OpenKneeBoard, allowing it access through your firewall if prompted. With that done, you now need to configure OpenKneeBoard to display the tabs you set up in iOverlay in the previous section of this video. To do that, make sure both iOverlay and OpenKneeBoard are running. Then click on Settings in the lower left of the OpenKneeBoard interface. From here, select Tabs and click on Add Tab and select Window Capture from the list of options available. You will be prompted to choose a window or tab or overlay. Doesn't matter what you call it. Just scroll down to find the names of the overlays you toggled as visible in iOverlay and add the first one you see by clicking on it and selecting OK. Once you've done that, click the Settings cog and rename it so you don't get confused later. And it's best to use the same names here as you used in iOverlay. Repeat this for all the overlays you selected as visible in iOverlay. Now go back to the Settings and click on Virtual Reality. Under the Views section, add as many kneeboards as you need for all your overlays. I have 4 overlays toggled as visible, so I will add another 3 kneeboards, defining each as independent from the drop-down menu. And then in the drop-down below Default tab, change this to the overlay name you want to define for each kneeboard. Repeat this for each of the other kneeboards you have defined, pointing each towards the correct overlay, and make sure the selection is set to independent from the drop-down menu. Once that is done, go back to kneeboard 1 and scroll down and make sure the header, footer and bookmarks toggle is toggled off, and also toggle off gaze zoom. Otherwise, every time you look at an overlay, it will zoom out you. It's most distracting. Repeat this for the other tabs. Turn off header, footer and bookmarks and gaze zoom. Finally, set a recenter button so the kneeboards always appear in your vision. To do this, go to Settings, then Input. Scroll down if you want to use your wheelbase to bind this feature, and click on Bind on the right next to Recenter VR. I set mine to a wheel button on my Moza R9. One different from the iRacing center view, as I wanted the 2 inputs to work independently of each other, as I find putting them on the same bind could cause issues of strangeness. And you are done. You can at last see if all this hard work has worked out for you.
It was difficult.
Adjusting overlays in VR. Now comes the messy, somewhat fiddly and clear pain in the backside job of moving the overlays into position. To effectively do this in VR, you need to be able to see the OpenKnee app in VR space. Fortunately, the Meta app has a simple way to achieve this. First of all, make sure iOverlay and KneeBoard are both running and that KneeBoard is not minimized. iOverlay can be minimized, but the tabs should be showing on the taskbar. Connect your Meta headset to your PC in your usual way. Remember, this video exists if you don't know how to do this. And once you reach the Meta void, this area here with the toolbar along the bottom, click on the plus symbol on the far right. You might need to use the controller to slide the interface slightly to reveal it. When you click on the plus symbol, you will be given a list of windows or tabs that can be pinned inside VR space. Choose OpenKnee from the list and then click on the pin icon at the bottom of the window so it remains visible when you enter iRacing. I would recommend you start an AI session from the iRacing interface. And don't forget, for these overlays to work, you must select the OpenXR option for accessing iRacing. Otherwise, you won't see any of the overlays in your VR display. This is vital. Please don't forget OpenXR option. And once iRacing has finished loading, go into your graphical settings and check that borderless is toggled off and that you are not in full screen. Full screen and a border won't work with iOverlay and or KneeBoard. With that done, enter the car and use the iRacing key to recenter your view in the car. You might need to, at this point, press the Meta button on the right controller to bring up the void again, and then click on the pinned window. That sometimes happens if it doesn't display correctly. Go to that, do that, then click on the iRacing button again to go back to iRacing, and you should see the OpenKneeBoard in front of you, sharing the VR space. Use the grip button on the Meta controller to drag the KneeBoard to somewhere where it's not directly in the way, and use the joystick on the Meta controller, left goes smaller, right goes bigger, to resize the OpenKneeBoard as you require. You are now ready to start setting up OpenKneeBoard. First of all, make sure your view is centered in the car by using whatever bind you set in iRacing to center the iRacing view. This is the normal center view in iRacing, not the one you defined in OpenKneeBoard. If you don't recenter your view in iRacing, you may find that you position your overlays in the wrong place. Once that's done, press the key you bound to recenter the overlays in OpenKneeBoard, and you might see them in your line of sight. I say might, because sometimes they can go to strange places, and apparently if you have more than one monitor on your PC, like I do, all the overlays can appear stacked on top of each other, like this, which is less than helpful. Now click on one of the tabs in the OpenKneeBoard interface using your mouse. I'm going to start with KneeBoard 1 and then scroll down to see the position controls here. Now use the controls to position the overlay where you want it to be, at the angle and pitch that you want. Once you're happy the overlay is where you want it to be, repeat this procedure for all the other overlays you have. This takes a bit of time and is very fiddly and very frustrating, but stick with it because you only have to do it once. Okay, assuming that you've got through that frustration treadmill, you can now do some laps to see if the positioning of the various overlays works for you. If it doesn't, then come out of it again, make sure you're sitting in the car, make sure you've recentered iRacing button and reposition all of the tabs again. Once you're happy that all of the overlays are in the correct place, click on the close icon at the bottom right of the OpenKnee VR window to remove it from your VR space. And you are now ready to properly test if these overlays are all working for you in the places where you have put them. Well done. That was frustrating, but you got to the end of it. Give yourself a pat on the back.
Let's never do that again.
Performance with overlays. One of the criticisms I see on the internet about third-party overlays combined with OpenKneeBoard in particular is the knock-on effect to performance headroom when using iRacing in VR. But is that true? Here I have my Quest 3 set with the base settings, 90 Hz, maximum slider, and the ODT set to 450 encode rate. On my system, any higher with the encode rate, I get some audio glitches. In iRacing, the settings I'm using for this test session are these. With all of that set up, here are two displays of Brands Hatch with 30 GT4s on the grid. On the left, you can see the performance without third-party overlay, so nothing here except what iRacing gives you. And on the right is with overlay displayed via the OpenKneeBoard app. I've zoomed in a little bit so that you can see the performance meter as displayed by the OpenXR toolkit. As you can see, at the start of the race, both are taking a slight dip, which I kind of expect on a crowded grid with an AI race. This is fairly normal. So no overlays and iOverlay via OpenKnee are both sitting at around 70 FPS, somewhat under the target of 90 FPS, but as I say, pretty much what I've come to expect. By the way, if you do run this at 72 FPS on a crowded grid, you tend to find there are no drops whatsoever, but that's another story. Eventually this does stable out with no overlays, obtaining the 90 FPS target perhaps a little bit quicker than the iOverlay OpenKnee combination on the right. But they both do eventually reach 90 FPS, and they do both maintain it fairly evenly throughout the race. The real clear difference is the headroom available to the computer, which is in the mid 40% range when no overlays are being used. But this drops to around the mid 30% range when iOverlay is running alongside OpenKneeBoard. That's a difference of around 10% GPU headroom, roughly, but sometimes it's neck and neck, so, it's not huge. It's not a massive difference, but if your racing setup is already borderline for running VR in the first place, you might want to consider giving third-party overlays a miss, as that hit in performance may be the straw that breaks the virtual camel's back.
Here, camel.
Conclusions. Still with me? Yes, the process of getting overlays into VR is messy and not particularly user-friendly, but once done, it is done, and you will of course learnt another life skill: how to set up overlays in VR using OpenKneeBoard. This is actually a useful skill, as overlays can be used in many different applications, including, for instance, Trophy AI, which can improve your racing by giving real-time feedback via these overlays in VR. It would be nice if Kneeboard allowed the position controls to appear as their own kneeboard. This might make the positioning a little bit easier, but it is what it is, and as I said, it only really needs to be done once, and then you are pretty much set and ready to go every time you jump into the sim and choose to use these third-party overlays. Another downside to overlays, and this is a general criticism of the third-party industry that surrounds sim racing rather than just picking on iOverlay, is that you can't buy these apps. You can only rent them via a subscription, and when you stop paying that subscription, you stop getting access to the app. All well and good, and I know developers of these apps need to make money to keep the lights on somehow, but honestly, a subscription for a third-party app for a service, iRacing, which I already pay a subscription for, is for me personally a bit too much. I just won't do it. I paid for SimHub, I paid for other apps like Crew Chief, and I use these for sim racing every day. If I could pay for iOverlay instead of renting it, I would do it tomorrow. But they only want to rent it, so that's me out, I'm afraid. You might feel differently, that's fine. This is just my personal opinion. That being said, when I did have an issue with iOverlay, the developer was very chatty via Discord and work to resolve my issues, which is nice, but I still don't want to pay a subscription for overlays. I just want to buy it. That's all I want to do, not rent them. As I said, Crew Chief, Sim Hub, one-time payment, done. If I want to upgrade later, fine. I just don't want to keep paying and paying and paying constantly each month for something that I may not use all of the time. Anyway, anti-subscription rant to one side. All I can say is, honestly, when I make a video like this with all this messing around, I start to gain a keen insight into those people who say they don't want to get into VR because it takes so much faffing to get it right. And yeah, they aren't wrong, are they? But it's too late for me, I'm afraid. I'm very much addicted to VR, and I have been for a very long time. So I guess this is the path I'm on, faffing and all. What about you? Does this sort of thing make you wonder if that ultra-wide curved monitor wouldn't just be a better idea than VR? Let me know in the comments below. In the meantime, I hope you found this video helpful. Until the next one, race clean, and I'll see you on track.
1, 3, 5. You just hit the fastest lap.
If you enjoyed this video, don't forget to click the like button, and if you haven't already done so, subscribe. Click the little bell icon if you want to be notified of any future videos.